Learn from mistakes. Thomas Edison tried 2,000 different materials in search of a filament for the light bulb. When none worked satisfactorily, his assistant complained, "All our work is in vain. We have learned nothing." Edison replied very confidently, "Oh, we have come a long way and we have learned a lot. We know that there are 2,000 elements which we cannot use to make a good light bulb." A short story on self-confidence. There was a business executive who was deep in debt and could see no way out. Creditors were closing in on him. Suppliers were demanding payment. He sat on the park bench, head in hands, wondering if anything could save his company from bankruptcy. Suddenly an old man appeared before him. "I can see that something is troubling you," he said. After listening to the executive's woes, the old man said, "I believe I can help you." He asked the man his name, wrote out a check, and pushed it into his hand saying, "Take this money. Meet me here exactly 1 year from today, and you can pay me back at that time." Then he turned and disappeared as quickly as he had come. The business executive saw in his hand a check for $500,000, signed by John D. Rockefeller, then one of the richest men in the world. "I can erase my money worries in an instant," he realized. But instead, the executive decided to put the uncashed check in his safe. Just knowing it was there might give him the strength to work out a way to save his business, he thought. With renewed optimism, he negotiated better deals and extended terms of payment. He closed several big sales. Within a few months, he was out of debt and making money once again. Exactly 1 year later, he returned to the park with the uncashed check. At the agreed upon time, the old man appeared. But just as the executive was about to hand back the check and share his success story, a nurse came running up and grabbed the old man. "I'm so glad I caught him," she cried. "I hope he hasn't been bothering you. He's always escaping from the rest home and telling people he's John D. Rockefeller." And she led the old man away by the arm. The astonished executive just stood there, stunned. All year long he'd been wheeling and dealing, buying and selling, convinced he had $500,000 behind him. Suddenly, he realized that it wasn't the money, real or imagined, that had turned his life around. It was his newfound self-confidence that gave him the power to achieve anything he went after. Enjoy your life at every moment. Once a fisherman was sitting near seashore, under the shadow of a tree smoking his beedi. Suddenly a rich businessman passing by approached him and inquired as to why he was sitting under a tree smoking and not working. To this the poor fisherman replied that he had caught enough fishes for the day. Hearing this, the rich man got angry and said, "Why don't you catch more fishes instead of sitting in shadow wasting your time?" Fisherman asked, "What would I do by catching more fishes?" Businessman, "You could catch more fishes, sell them and earn more money, and buy a bigger boat." Fisherman, "What would I do then?" Businessman, "You could go fishing in deep waters and catch even more fishes and earn even more money." Fisherman, "What would I do then?" Businessman, "You could buy many boats and employ many people to work for you and earn even more money." Fisherman, "What would I do then?" Businessman, "You could become a rich businessman like me." Fisherman, "What would I do then?" Businessman, "You could then enjoy your life peacefully." Fisherman, "Isn't that what I am doing now?" Moral: You don't need to wait for tomorrow to be happy and enjoy your life. You don't even need to be more rich, more powerful to enjoy life. Life is at this moment, enjoy it fully. As some great men have said, "My riches consist not in extent of my possessions but in the fewness of my wants." Author unknown. Military. A beautiful true love story. One day, a young guy and a young girl fell in love. But the guy came from a poor family. The girl's parents weren't too happy. So the young man decided not only to court the girl but to court her parents as well. In time, the parents saw that he was a good man and was worthy of their daughter's hand. But there was another problem. The man was a soldier. Soon, war broke out and he was being sent overseas for a year. The week before he left, the man knelt on his knee and asked his lady love, "Will you marry me?" She wiped a tear, said yes, and they were engaged. They agreed that when he got back in 1 year, they would get married. But tragedy struck. A few days after he left, the girl had a major vehicular accident. It was a head-on collision. When she woke up in the hospital, she saw her father and mother crying. Immediately, she knew there was something wrong. She later found out that she suffered brain injury. The part of her brain that controlled her face muscles was damaged. Her once lovely face was now disfigured. She cried as she saw herself in the mirror. Yesterday, I was beautiful. Today, I'm a monster. Her body was also covered with so many ugly wounds. Right there and then, she decided to release her fiancé from their promise. She knew he wouldn't want her anymore. She would forget about him and never see him again. For 1 year, the soldier wrote many letters, but she wouldn't answer. He phoned her many times but she wouldn't return her calls. But after 1 year, the mother walked into her room and announced, "He's back from the war." The girl shouted, "No. Please don't tell him about me. Don't tell him I'm here." The mother said, "He's getting married," and handed her a wedding invitation. The girl's heart sank. She knew she still loved him, but she had to forget him now. With great sadness, she opened the wedding invitation. And then she saw her name on it. Confused, she asked, "What is this?" That was when the young man entered her room with a bouquet of flowers. He knelt beside her and asked, "Will you marry me?" The girl covered her face with her hands and said, "I'm ugly." The man said, "Without your permission, your mother sent me your photos. When I saw your photos, I realized that nothing has changed. You're still the person I fell in love. You're still as beautiful as ever. Because I love you." Author unknown. Keep your dream. I have a friend named Monty Roberts who owns a horse ranch in San Isidro. He has let me use his house to put on fundraising events to raise money for youth at risk programs. The last time I was there, he introduced me by saying, "I want to tell you why I let Jack use my horse." It all goes back to a story about a young man who was the son of an itinerant horse trainer who would go from stable to stable, racetrack to racetrack, farm to farm and ranch to ranch, training horses. As a result, the boy's high school career was continually interrupted. When he was a senior, he was asked to write a paper about what he wanted to be and do when he grew up. That night he wrote a 7-page paper describing his goal of someday owning a horse ranch. He wrote about his dream in great detail and he even drew a diagram of a 200-acre ranch, showing the location of all the buildings, the stables and the track. Then he drew a detailed floor plan for a 4,000-square-foot house that would sit on a 200-acre dream ranch. He put a great deal of his heart into the project and the next day he handed it in to his teacher. 2 days later he received his paper back. On the front page was a large red F with a note that read, "See me after class." The boy with the dream went to see the teacher after class and asked, "Why did I receive an F?" The teacher said, "This is an unrealistic dream for a young boy like you. You have no money. You come from an itinerant family. You have no resources. Owning a horse ranch requires a lot of money. You have to buy the land. You have to pay for the original breeding stock and later you'll have to pay large stud fees. There's no way you could ever do it." Then the teacher added, "If you will rewrite this paper with a more realistic goal, I will reconsider your grade." The boy went home and thought about it long and hard. He asked his father what he should do. His father said, "Look, son, you have to make up your own mind on this. However, I think it is a very important decision for you." Finally, after sitting with it for a week, the boy turned in the same paper, making no changes at all. He stated, "You can keep the F and I'll keep my dream." Monty then turned to the assembled group and said, "I tell you this story because you are sitting in my 4,000 square foot house in the middle of my 200-acre horse ranch. I still have that school paper framed over the fireplace." He added, "The best part of the story is that 2 summers ago that same schoolteacher brought 30 kids to camp out on my ranch for a week. When the teacher was leaving, the teacher said, 'Look, Monty, I can tell you this now. When I was your teacher, I was something of a dream stealer. During those years I stole a lot of kids' dreams. Fortunately you had enough gumption not to give up on yours. Don't let anyone steal your dreams. Follow your heart, no matter what." Author unknown.